Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining to the March Open Metadata Community Meeting. And if this is the first time that you join, welcome. We hope that you are going to repeat the next month. And just for you to know what to expect from these meetings, we always start giving a nice overview on the community updates and metrics so that you can see how everyone is doing with Open Metadata. Today, we are super excited because we have our friends from Gorgias that they are going to share some awesome use cases with Open Metadata. So super happy to see how not only they are collaborating with PRs and super involved in the project, but that they also took the chance to come here and present. So super thankful, Antoine and Anas, for you taking the time here. I cannot wait for this. And then we'll jump into the release 1.7 highlights. There's a ton of work that the team and the community has been putting there. And usually I get nervous when it's the time for the community meeting, but this time I am actually more excited than nervous because there's so many cool things that we really can't wait to show you. And as always, we'll try to get something in the end for some Q&A in case that there's anything about the contents that we're sharing here that you would like to ask. In any case, during this presentation, feel free to use the chat for any questions that you have. And this is being recorded. So at the end, like tomorrow or Friday, the latest, we are also going to upload this on YouTube so that you can share it with your friends, with your colleagues, and help us spread the word a bit more on the amazing things that the community is doing. And let's take a look at the numbers from March. So we have 4 new open source developers, almost 200 new GitHub stars. We are very close to a nice round number here on the Slack community. If you are not there yet on Slack, this is actually the best place for you to ask questions, interact with the rest of the community via to requests. We are more than happy to help to get you unblocked, to make sure that you are super successful with your implementation of Open Metadata. And also, if you're already a pro, you've been here for years, you know the ins and outs on the project, and you also know how to answer certain questions, feel free to chip in, feel free to share your experience, because that's where the value of open source lies. And finally, almost 200 new people joining both on Twitter and Meetup. So if you're not following the project yet on Meetup, you are never going to miss the new community meetup or the office hours that we host every other week. And you can also follow Open Metadata on Twitter just to make sure that also you are not missing any of these notifications. In terms of metrics, as you can see, always that the release is coming close, there's a big bump of the merged PRs. And just in the last 4 weeks, we merged 300 PRs. That's a ton of work that both the team and our contributors put in here. So thanks a lot for this huge effort. That's actually what makes sure that Open Metadata is evolving and iterating as fast as it's doing. So great effort. Round of applause for everyone. And in terms of posts, as I was saying, a lot of people interacting in Slack, a lot of people asking questions, almost 600 questions in the last 4 weeks. So if you're not there in Slack, please make sure that you are joining and we can all enjoy Open Metadata together. And as you can see, most of the questions that we're getting in the end in Slack, they are generic questions that are getting resolved, but also if you find some bugs, if there's some feature request that you would like to ask or raise, Slack again might be the best channel so that we can start having these conversations. And after the Christmas bump, the tendency is also going up and up, and we are growing on these Slack posts per month. Super thankful for also the 14 community contributors that we had this month. So either you want to jump into open source, you don't know how to get started. So in GitHub, you can find good first issues. So those are usually selected by us. We know that let's say the learning curve into getting started and playing with that is going to be lower. So if you would like to start getting a bit more involved with the project, feel free to take a look at that. We would be very happy also to hold your hand a bit at the beginning and help you getting started with the project. We also have in Slack this contributors channel in case that you have any questions on how to move forward. But if there's still no issue raised, but you are finding some things that can be improved, new connectors or whatnot, please feel free to raise a PR. Please feel free to start a conversation, and we can help you also move forward with that. So thanks a lot to all of you that are putting the time and effort into contributing to Open Metadata. And that being said, super exciting. Thanks, Antoine. Thanks, Anas. I'm going to give you the screen and the word, and let us
All
know
right,
how things are working in Gorgias.
everybody. It's a lot of people in this room. Uh, Hello, everybody, and thank you, Pere. Thank you to the Open Metadata team. Give me a second to just share my screen. Boom. All right. So again, hello to the Open Metadata community, and thanks to the Open Metadata team for giving us this platform to talk about our journey. Hoping that it will help your Open Metadata as a whole and everybody using it. So we Anton and I are working at Gorgias, so I'm gonna first talk about a little bit what we do at Gorgias, and then we're gonna talk about the stack, what it looks like, what are the tools that we use, the types of volume that we deal with. We'll go over some technical details, and implementation, and yeah, then at the end we'll give you like some overall feedback on our journey and the tool. So how's it going? So what do we do at Gorgias? So Gorgias is now completely pivoted into a conventional AI platform for CX, so customer experience in general. Basically, we try and automate conversation for our clients and their shoppers. So we now power over 1 billion conversation with 275 million shoppers worldwide. It's a lot of conversations. And all of these conversations have to go somewhere. So they're being dealt with a huge stack that we kind of handle. So we actually handle the internal data analytics at Gorgias, which is a bit separate from the product analytics, which is responsible for the reporting for our customers. And on our end, we do all that's internal analytics. So everything that has to do with business reporting, we power and we platform. So we deal with all of the infrastructure, all of the flows, all of the ETL pipelines, all of the streaming pipelines now into a warehouse. We deal with. Um, so let's talk about how that looks like in numbers. So this is how the stack looks like in numbers right now. So on the product side, we currently have 250 tables in production, which are basically replicated through CDC pipelines using mostly Kafka and Kafka Connect right now, plus some internal tooling. We are over 100 million daily streamed records. We have 45 million daily records dealt with in the classic ETL ELT pipelines now with DBT, Kestra, our orchestrator, and Airbyte. We'll go over that in a few more details afterwards. We are around 5 petabytes per day of process warehouse data. We deal with 1,400 DBT models built daily across different projects, which is again why a tool like Open Metadata is going to come in handy. And we have over 400 data users and 15 dedicated data analysts that work on this data as well. And in terms of tooling, this is what it looks like right now. So we're all on GCP for the most part. We have a strong barrier for open source tools, so we do deploy a lot of those. So Kestra, one of them. Airbyte also is one of them. On the left side, you'll see all the basically inflows of data. So Kafka, Debezium, Airbyte segment for all that collection and gestion. On the right side is what we use as BI. We're currently transitioning from Periscope to the Omni solution, which looks very, very nice. And the teams that deal with the data also use high touch and cargo for activation. So we orchestrate all of that with Kestra, which is again an open source tool, completely self-hosted on a GK cluster. We use with like teams also still use Zapier because it's a cool no code tool. You can get going very fast with data. And Cloud Function and Cloud Run, which we do provide the infrastructure for, but we don't own the sub teams own their automation directly now. Again, everything is transformed through dbt. And our observability tools are currently Datadog and Metaplane. Datadog because we do deploy regular Python apps, and Metaplane because it was here first. We discovered Open Metadata right after, so we actually used Open Metadata at the beginning as a proxy for Caster, which we churned out from. Again, I'll talk that after a little bit. And then in discoverability, we use dot AI, which is a tool it's basically a SQL agent that helps you figure out where your data is. And again, this choice was made thanks to Open Metadata, which again, Antoine will talk about. So why an open metadata platform? As I talked about, like we have quite a few bytes of data going through our warehouse across different teams, across different projects. So we basically have like 1,400 dbt models to sort through, and it was getting really hectic trying to figure out what is what. The column lineage, the dependencies was getting really hard to read. And the team also at Gorgias also kind of doubled since entering join, I think, and we started like they're starting working on a lot of different projects. And so these teams produce data that we want to track and we want these analysts to make decisions from. So uh, it started getting uh, it started getting hard to figure out what was going on. And again, we thought about a metadata platform for usage tracking because we wanted to know what were the most important models and flag them. Basically, have automation run through them for QA, for alerting if anything goes wrong. And so why did we end up choosing open metadata? Honestly, during our benchmarking, it was the clear winner through all of these three features. So it was open source because we have a strong bias towards open source. We already deployed open source tools that were the base for our stack. So an orchestrator and an ETL tool. Um, we have a lot of control because we know how to deploy these tools, right? And we could absolutely tailor and custom the features that we wanted or any deployment issues that we could deal with. We could manage and just like the raw power of the tool was amazing. So just like super thorough lineage features. We had strong collaboration features that was like again we compared to Castor because that was our measuring stick. And none of that was there, and especially the very useful API that we really leveraged in a couple of projects. So I'll now shut up and
Mhm.
share the boat to Antoine, which will talk about more the technical details of how we implemented open metadata. And yeah, Antoine, if you're here, let's go.
Thank you, Anas. Yeah,
Yeah.
happy to present again to Open Metadata. We're very happy to showcase some applications we have with the tool. So we deployed Open Metadata on Kubernetes using most of the managed services we could. So the Cloud SQL on GCP to manage the database. We are on Elastic Cloud for the Elasticsearch infrastructure. And for the ingestion part, for everything related to connecting to production databases, BigQuery, dbt, and so on, we use Kestra, our orchestrator that allows us to have specific deployment policies. For example, we have dedicated node pool on Kubernetes with whitelisted IPs to ingest from production databases. And also it allows us to not store anything precious in terms of credentials in our database. Everything is like going through directly secret manager and then the orchestra flows, and we have everything Terraform, of course, in the setup. So that's the best way we found so far. And yeah, we are talking a lot about Kestra because we we are very happy with the tool. We're not sponsored from by them, like we're used the open source solution, but it's very cool that we could Terraform everything regarding the ingestion flow. So you see on the right an example of a flow. So it creates a pod, a Kubernetes pod. You can specify everything related to any spec that you need, and you have all the YAML directly configuration that is very explicit and well documented on OpenMetadata documentation. And we have like namespaces that split the different tools that we ingest. So you can go to the next slide, Anas. Yeah, so in terms of coverage, so we have mainly BigQuery, Postgres, ClickHouse, Kafka. We have a custom dashboard integration because we use Periscope that does not have a native one. Probably gonna build a new one for Omni. And we have Airbyte and Kafka Connect. Again, also easy to build a custom integration. So we are probably gonna push for more. I'll tell more about this later. Overall, we have like 14K, 45K, sorry, entities. So it's a lot. In terms of usage, we have 10 daily strong data analytics users. So it's mainly people who have like strong knowledge about the data in general and are building models like DBT models or dashboards, or are in embedded teams but still working on analytics mainly. So they really dig into the platform. They can tag models, they can define tiers and so on, and we found it like super relevant. On the engineer side, adoption was more difficult because we have like Datadog with the data stream monitoring features that is very relevant for streaming. Like they have the volume, the lag, real time, and so on. So of course, this is not the target audience for now, but we found a way to push it for more adoption. Yeah, that's it for this slide. So regarding the API, as we said, like we found it like super easy to use and powerful. So we had mainly two applications. As we wanted to bring more adoption of the tool, we decided to build the AI discovery agent. So we used only mainly the Open Metadata API to build the data set and create this Slack integration where people can now ask directly questions. So we call it like Data Sensei, but this is just the bot we built internally, and it answers like with the information provided into Open Metadata. And the other application is like trying to bring more QA and governance by creating this tier and tagging of our resources. And now we even implemented tests to check like whether everything is correctly defined in terms of like description, column descriptions, tagging and so on in our DBT. So no one can merge a new transformation without complying. So it brought a lot of clarity. So quickly, the infrastructure for the bot. So it's mainly Open Metadata Notion API that source the data. We built a kind of document generation process where we could index this document in a vector database. Here it's Quadrant. And then we store interactions in Cloud SQL and have Slack integration. So this is the overall. We added some details. We used Vana for the open source framework that they offer for building Slack agents. But moving forward, we discovered it's a big project. Like you need to have like an UI and validate the previous answer, have clear history and so on. So it was a big project, sorry. So we decided to go to a company building this. So in our case, it's Dot, but there are plenty. But still, Open Metadata offers us to have a strong layer of discovery yeah, can go to the next slide. Yeah, powerful tool. So we have like everything that we need in terms of ingestion for the assets and systems we have. It saves a lot of time for a data analyst. On adoption, we're working hard on building new integration that will be useful for other teams. So on RevOps team, we have a lot of usage in cargo and high touch. So we're likely to build new integrations for these teams And for the engineering side, we're going to work more on the Kafka schemas and so on, because these are parts that are missing in Datadog and very useful, like in systems where you are more and more adopting Kafka to generate events and so on, so like outbox events, strategies, and so on. So here, data can bring a lot of clarity. Overall, it's been a very successful year. We've been using the tool a lot, and it helps a lot with cleaning, as well as detecting like models that are not used, and trying to remove some of these thousands of tables that are not always super important but still maintained. So yeah, there's a lot of room still, but we're very happy with what we achieved. So that's it. If you have any questions, again, very happy to present our use case at Gorgias.
Awesome. Thanks, Antoine. Thanks, Anas. If you have any questions for the Gorgeous team, feel free to use the chat. And also, as we were saying, everyone is present on Slack, so feel free to also reach out in there. And again, thank you for presenting. It's always super cool to see how people are actually leveraging all of this flexibility and the power of these APIs, no? From actually just ditching Airflow and figuring out what's the right tool for you to handle the ingestion, in this case, Kestra, up to, let's say, powering all of this AI tooling or this GitHub action enforcement and whatnot. So thank you for showing these use cases. A pleasure to have you in the community, and super happy that you had the chance to present. So awesome job. And yeah, merci.
I can just answer this question. We tried that data hub. I don't know if you have time for answering, or should I answer in the
Yeah,
chat?
go for it, the Metaplane one.
Yeah, we tried the data hub as well, but we really wanted ingestion managed externally, which is not provided by other open source data catalog solutions. Most of them, they are very embedded, and that's, I think it's a real power from OpenMetadata, that you can you have this decoupled, separated in terms of processes. So that was it. And also the Lineage view was way more heavy in Data Hub. So it was very slow. At least I felt the app was super slow compared to OpenMetadata. It's super fast. There's only one single deployment if you separate the ingestion process. So it's very powerful and super fast.
We have a lot of large tables, so as soon as there was a table with 300 columns, it was just starting going crazy. So
Awesome. So thanks a lot. Let's keep chatting on these questions on the Zoom chat. And let's move to the rest of the agenda, because we have a lot of great things that we want to show you here for 1.7. So as you can see, we have more than 900 commits that are coming in since the version 1.60. And today we're going to be discussing a new UX. We're going to discuss this new feature that we call the day one experience. We're going to present a new collect feature for reverse metadata, but there's many more things coming in, such as new connectors, as always, lineage improvements, search relevant settings, personas customizations. So we are super excited to get all of these work out. And in order to start with this part of the presentation, Rithik, I'm going to pass the screen to you.
Thank you, Perry. Quickly, let me share the screen. I think is my screen visible?
Yes, thanks.
All right, thank you. Hey everyone, I'm super excited to walk you all with the latest updates of 1.7 with the UX thing. Our focus has been on making the platform more intuitive, modern, and user-friendly, ensuring both all the technical and non-technical users can have a seamless experience. And with respect to the contents today, I have split it into 3 topics, that is like UX validation and the key improvements with a short demo, and last, why we need all these changes. So directly, let's move on to the next slide. I think here, with respect to UX, we are trying to achieve a modern and consistent user experience, like based on the user feedbacks, and we have analyzed few design audits here. We tried to reinforce a latest design principle focusing more on the modernity, like keeping the UI very simple and consistent across the platform. And with these key points in mind, our goal is to come up with a new design system, and our design system now ensures that all the component looks and behave uniformly, giving a consistent and standard behavior across the more layouts and intuitive behaviors, and making these small interactions look more smoother and easy and seamless predictions for the users to do their works. And the new UI provides a minimized screen usage, like maximize screen usage with less white spaces, eliminating all the unnecessary things and making the clarity more on the datas. I think like the next key improvements are, we are highlighting just two things here, but a lot of visual treats is going to come on the actual release. Like first thing is going to be the user profile page. And I know that user profile page is going to be the collaborative and accessible page for task management and other stuffs. Followed by that, the entity page. Entity page has a lot of datas, and the data visibility is like too common, and we are a competitive in this part. I think like we'll directly walk you through the demo of this one. This is the existing behavior of the legacy, that is like the user profile page. And here I could point out few flaws, like the user has to collapse and expand most of the time to check their actual datas, like more priority datas. And with respect to activity feeds, my data and following, it's like giving a standard look, free floating everywhere, and it doesn't visually catch up the exact thing what we are supposed to cover. In the new design, like we are pointing out all these stuffs and we are rectifying it with the new layout. I think this is the layout which we are coming up with the latest styles, like let's say user has subcategories, persona, domains, and terms, wherein they can easily visualize these things with seamless behavior. And the thing is like we are providing tab switches with more less space occupancy but more user friendly. And the card view here gives a clear structure about the comments and the things which they can handle with the emojis and other stuff. And the comment section also gives a clear visual eye treat, and they can easily visualize what are the comments are going, and the layers are also coming out well. But here like we have other tasks and improvements that we are supposed to show the new inline objectives, like inline operations that user can perform. Earlier it was not the case. When user sticks on with any task, like they need to go into that, they do analyze the data, and they have to jump into that particular entity page and they have to perform operations. But in our case, like we are providing the options where user can check the data then and there, and they can provide approve or reject. And if they want more details, they can check it on the display screen here, and the suggestions and accept more options can be applied, and even the comment sections can be visually applied here. So all these things are like minor changes, but it seems to be the visual changes that we are bringing up turns lot of glance of data coming into a visual card, makes the user feel light and easy to use. With respect to my data, we are following the same structure and cards with the following filters and Elasticsearch applied. And here the layouts. This is the one which I need to point out specifically. The layouts which we use in the left panel are not clearly organized. Even the tags, descriptions, and other highlight headings are not visually clear. And we are pointing out and we are fixing it up in all the latest card views. So these widgets give an appropriate actions and making the user understand that it's a behavior that can be easily done. All these things are collapsible and expandable. Based on this, user can take maximum amount of attention on what they need to visually understand and look into. The same applies to the following, and all these things are clearly explained and neatly structured. And I can even show a short demo on how to change the persona or remove personas, and this can be clearly applied. And just a matter of second, we can update the default and domains and terms and other stuffs. So this is one thing mainly which I was about to show. And the next point is one of our key focus area is enhancing collaboration. And I think like now enabling all these functionalities put into one screen, usually gives an improvement. Like with this improvements, we are making it easy for the teams to track and discuss and follow all their tasks seamlessly and manage multiple tasks together without switching between screens and other stuff. And the other part is like entity page. When we analyzed how user interact with the entity pages and notice inconsistency in how data are well structured, we came up with the solutions like design solution in improving the header part, widgets clarity, and organize the slide pane, and to have the improvements like widgets can have a better heading with more actions, customizing the properties, and all these things have been structured very well. In fact, like if we go to the entity page, like this is the older entity page which we have, and here we have a breadcrumb top heading bars, and these are the properties of this entity, but it still shows only the data and it doesn't define what it is. And the same way apply to other things like the tags and other operations are being given here, but it's not visually clear like how we are going to handle, and there is no clear separation. And here it has a lot many data but without any clarity on what is the look we are obtaining. But in the new design look, we try to provide an organized structure for the properties, for the side widgets, for the tables and other constraints over here. The main thing is user can directly follow the entity easily, and they can like or dislike and check the versions of it with more actions. And the properties here are much defined with their identity labels, and they can perform edit operations and they can easily update the data over here. And with respect to schema, let's say like we have a lot of properties for this particular table. If there is no property, that's another case, but with a lot of properties, user find it difficult to scroll each and every time. So we come up with the scroll, expand and collapse option. When user wants to expand this data, they can visually view it easily, and this apply to all the properties here. The same way when it comes to table, like earlier table was very restricted with limited number of fields, but now we expanded options like giving bulk updates, providing columns like where when user clicks on columns, they will be able to see what are the columns and what they want to show and what they want to hide. Because in our existing behavior, let's say this is the table and they wanted to do perform more actions and they each and every time need to scroll a lot. But let's say like we have an option like this, like column management. If user don't want to see more properties here, they can simply hide and they can perform operations. The same way we are providing edit and filter options, that is also making the easier job. I think these are like small updates which we come up with UX and the usability part. These are like the operations which we performing, and this is in the beta test now. Well organized site pane are the key highlights here. I think like we have all these matters doing and going on. With these updates, we are not just improving the UI, we are just enhancing the overall experience by making the workflow faster and reducing clutters, or like introducing a new look with layers, ensuring users can get a better user experience over here. And yeah, that's the update about all UI things, and this can be wrapped with the UI updates. I think like we are working on and enhancing the user experiments. It would be great if we get the user feedback, and yeah, we are happy to work on that.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Ritika, for showcasing these. As you can see, folks, there's been a lot of thought that the team has put on figuring out what's working, what's not working, and in the end, how can we make any user of the tool more efficient, right? How can we make sure that you are doing the right interactions, that you are finding the right data? And with this same train of thought, with this same idea on how can we improve even more the experience of the users, it's how we actually started to think and design what we call this day one experience. No, the main idea is how can we make sure that when you are landing new in OpenMetadata, in Collate, be it in the free tier or not, how can we make sure that you are just going from zero to hero in a single click, right? How can we even make faster and better all of this process of connecting to your sources, extracting all of the relevant information, and making sure that you can start getting insights and value from the minute zero that you're using the tool. So with this let's say, feature set of the day one experience, we are introducing a one-click deployment for all of your metadata agents. We are also changing and improving the service filtering UX, and I'm going to show you now on how you can actually define some better default filters so that you know that at least when you're starting, you are focusing on certain pieces of data and you can get the right information in from the beginning. We are also bringing a service data insights page so that you can actually focus from service to service on the data assets that you have and how they are behaving. And also for Collate, on top of these features that are available in open source, we are bringing, as you know, the auto description generation thanks to Collate AI, but we are also introducing automated tier classification and automated data quality creation based on the shape of your data quality tests. So let's take a look on how this process is going to look now, and let's hope that the demo effect is going to be behaving properly. And while I'm going to jump into these places, as you can see, most of the things that Rithika has been explaining are already here. So you might see some pages that are looking a bit different than what you might be used to. And now what I'm just going to do, I'm going to come here and I'm going just to show you an ingestion on how this would look like for just a small local MySQL service that I have. So I'm going just to connect here and into the OpenMetadata DB. And I'm just going to hope that I'm putting the right definitions. And as you can see, when I'm clicking on next, it's already prompting me into adding the filters for this service. And not only that, we are even putting some default filtering experience here for you, right? Because usually maybe you're coming here, you're not adding any filters out of the box, and you might be getting, in this case, the information schema or the performance schema. Those are actually pieces of metadata that do not necessarily bring value for your users, right? Because it's not related to your business. Those are just internals of the service. So we have been scanning the most used services so that whenever you start playing with that, you are also getting some help into, okay, maybe those two pieces are something that you want to get out. In this case, for me, I'm just going to focus to a subset of tables just to make sure that this process goes as fast as possible. And as you can see right now, I'm jumping into this new service page, right? So with the new header that the UX team has been defining. So thank you, folks. Thank you, the UI magicians, to make this happen, to translate Figma into reality. So as you can see, we are going to keep getting all of these platform insights and whatnot directly at a service level, and I have not done anything yet. And if I jump here into my metadata agents, I see how the metadata pipeline, the metadata workflow, has already been created, right? This is because what this day one experience is going to do is going to say, hey, we know internally the right steps that we need to make for you to actually be able to get the right metadata. You need to start extracting the metadata, right? That's the main foundation, the databases, the schemas, tables, descriptions, and whatnot. Once we have these basic ingredients, we can go on and say, I'm going to pick the lineage information. I'm going to pick the usage. Then based on that, maybe we can start running the auto classification, the profiler, or also in the case of Collate, these AI agents about the Collate AI application to generate the descriptions, to generate data quality tests, or to generate the tiers, right? So we know internally what are all of these dependencies that we need to make. So why actually prompt the users to do that if we can actually help them by automatically creating all of these pieces? And as you can see, I have done nothing. I have just been here waiting for you. None of my cats are actually helping in another computer setting this up. And I have the metadata pipeline that has already been running and it's a success. I have the lineage, which is failing. I know that it was going to fail because I don't have the logs properly set up for MySQL. And it's also running the usage. And now it's waiting to start running the profiler and the auto classification. So as you can see, all of this process is going to make it way, way easier for you because you spin up your new service, you define the right filters. All of these filters, as you can see, these defaults are going to be living now with this service as well. If for whatever reason we want to come here, we can still add a new metadata agent, or I can come to my existing metadata agent, edit it, and change also the filters here. So we are not removing any functionality. We are just adding another convenience layer on top of the flow that was already existing, so that you can have this magical one-click experience about everything being populated, right? So now I can come here in the insights. Magically, I can already see some of these dashboards that are already coming. Again, this was kind of just a simple toy example, so nothing much to show here. But if I actually come into my, sorry about that, Snowflake service, I can see that actually these AI agents are bringing some descriptions, they are bringing tags, and they are bringing tiers. I can see also very quickly what's the coverage of these very key, I was going to say very key KPIs, but that's a bit redundant. These very key concepts, these pieces that we want to drive in order for people to actually be able to understand and trust our data. So we are going to see all of these insights from here. What's the distribution for our PII, for our tiers? What's the most used data asset? So based on the usage, we're going to scan which are the queries run against each table, so that I can see, okay, if I actually need to take a look at any piece of data for my Snowflake service, in this case, I might want to start with the orders because that's right there at the top of my list. Or also, I want to see maybe my most expensive queries. This widget here will be only for Collate. This is part of our cost analysis suite. And as you can see, I can take a look at which are the queries that have been executing, how many times they have been executed, and their associated cost. And if I actually now go into, I have another database here that also has some tests that have been automatically created via this AutoDQ agent. So as you can see, it's very, very easy now just to configure, run it, wait a few minutes, start seeing all of this metadata coming in, start seeing all of these dashboards being populated, and we can even maybe just show yet another example on how these dashboards are going to look like if I come here into Sandbox Beta. And I can take a, let me open it. And I can take a look yet another example with a bit of more tables, with tags generated, the other pieces not appearing, again, the distributions of the tiers and the PII and whatnot. So super, super helpful and super, super powerful, being able to just lock down, starting to get all of these agents running for us and starting to get all of these tiers automatically for those services that we have just ingested. So super excited for all of these pieces that are coming in on this day one experience. But that's not only it, because this is like asking me which of my two cats I prefer. I'm not quite sure, but I'm also super excited about this next feature, which is the reverse metadata, right? And here we were thinking on a very typical use case, because right now we say, okay, we have users that are playing with Collate. They are now hopefully using this day one experience to get all of the metadata automatically in. So we use Collate to ingest the metadata, and then these users come and they are tagging all of these assets directly in Collate. But the problem is that even these PII tags are coming into Collate. Right now, there's this disconnect, right? Because these tags are going to still live in Collate, but there was no way of moving those tags back into the source, right? How do we make sure that the data that is PII sensitive, also the source system is aware of that sensitivity, or about descriptions or ownerships? But just for the sake of discussion, we're going to focus here on this PII data. So what usually would happen is that then these top actors are going to come, are going to ping the data engineering or the infra team, and then those folks are the ones that are going to be propagating this information back into the source. But that's not always that easy, because then introducing processes, no, most likely we don't like to admit that, but most likely these people are going to get some data, export it in Excel files. From Excel files, they are going to actually try to figure out how that data is going to look like. Then maybe they need to open a Jira or send an email or send Teams, talk to their managers, up until these layers and layers and layers of processes just for these 3 people to be able to do their job and properly govern the data, not only at the metadata management platform, but to making sure that these changes are being applied into the source system. And that's what we are attacking here with the reverse metadata. We are actually going to be using Collate as a way to activate this metadata that you have been putting here, that you have been promoting for folks to use, to discover, to apply, to crowdsource, and whatnot. So we're going to activate that metadata to be propagated into the source. And the use case that I'm going to show you now is also on how you can then link these tags that are going to be propagated with masking policies to make sure that you have some nice end-to-end automated GDPR processing for your data. So let me share here my screen. So I have this very simple, tiny table in Snowflake that is called users. And as you can see, there's emails in this table. So I do want actually to mask this piece of data. So what I can do is I'm going to come here into Collate. I'm going to jump into my Snowflake service. And I know here that within customers, Jaffle Shop, sorry, not this one, this reverse Snowflake. There we go. Here in user data, I do have my users table. And now I'm going to put the hat of a person that is actually working here to govern the data. So let's take a look on how we can activate this and how can we make sure that this gets propagated into the source. The first step will be to actually come here into the applications and make sure that we are installing this reverse metadata, and I'm going to configure it. Here, as you can see, I was playing with a backup. In this case, I don't want to configure the backup. I want this to run on my reverse Snowflake service. I'm just going to set that, and I do want to propagate descriptions, owners, and tags. Though for simplicity now, I'm just going to show the tags here. I'm going to save this configuration. Now I'm going back into my table, and I'm just going to add here into the email that this is PII sensitive. Now, I'm updating this, and if I go into the recent runs, you can see this is now running. And while this is running, this is important because this is happening live. We are catching here the events that are happening internally. So you come, you add a tag, and at this exact moment, this tag is being picked up from Collate and is going to be sent into Snowflake. So we're going to wait. This usually takes like 30 seconds because of local not being the most performant here. So let's give it a bit of time. And in around, I guess, now we should be able to see this as a success. Perfect. Now I can come and thanks to the new UX design, I can very quickly see that my source URL is here. So I can jump back into my table in Snowflake. And this is my users data. And if I go back into the columns, magically, this sensitive tag has appeared here. So I'm going to go back into my query. And if I run it, okay, now the table has the tag, but this is still not masked. So in order to make sure that this is properly masked, what I have done is we have created this masking policy, and I'm going to assign the masking policy to the sensitive tag that was propagated from Collate into Snowflake. And now that we have set this, I'm querying the data, and this email is not appearing. So super powerful. I just came here into Collate, I added the tag, and magically things are happening into my source. How can we even make this happen a bit more magically? I'm going to get back into my agents. And as you know, we also have this auto classification agent. So I'm going to enable the auto classification so that we are going to use this automated process to, let me trigger it, to come here and analyze the shape of my data, analyze the sample data, try to do some entity recognition inside that so that automatically we are going to go from having this table, I'm going to look for that table again. So I'm going to have that table that right now I just added that tag manually. This auto classification is going to take a look at what's the data. It's going to figure out if we are actually missing any other data that might need to be sensitive. And then the reverse metadata application is going to be picking those changes, be propagating those changes into Snowflake, and thanks to us adding this masking policy, this data is going to be automatically masked in the source. So as you can see, super powerful way of actually activating this metadata. And once we start putting pieces together, right, I can have this reverse metadata flow that it's moving. I can have this auto classification process. We can automate a lot of tedious processes in order to make sure that these agents that are here at the top are as independent and as performant as possible, because otherwise it's very hard to scale the data teams and the governance teams at the same rate that the data is changing and that the platforms are evolving. So we need to actually find a way on how can we make the most of the tools, of the contexts, of the processes that we already have to automate as much as possible so that these folks here are not overwhelmed with these new changing and evolving as well governance policies. So let's take a look now. Let's see if this agent. Okay, so it finished running. I can come back into my table. Let's see if something new appeared here. So I see that now my name is also tagged as sensitive, but I actually have a cooler example here because I have my sensitive customers table that, as you can see, it has some column names that, okay, they might make sense. So I know that it's an address or a social security number. Maybe a human could even come here and tag that as sensitive or not. But we also have this weird column here that if I take a look at the sample data, those are actually emails. And I'm able to see the sample data here because I'm an admin of the tool. If you would not be an admin, these PII columns in the sample data are going to be masked in Collate. But what is super cool here is that now I can click back into my sensitive customers. I come back into my columns. I can see all of these tags that have been propagated in there. And if I'm able to find, there we go, here, I can now query this table and all of these columns are also going to be masked here. So super excited about this new feature. It's a super powerful way that you can actually supercharge all of the actions, all of the metadata, all of the collaboration, all of the crowdsourcing that you're doing into Collate. So hopefully you are as excited as I am. And now, sorry, Harsha, I took a bit of more time that I had, but I'm going to give you the word to close it out.
All right. Can see my screen. Thanks, everyone. I'll see how fast I can run, but I'll try to take time. We can obviously talk more about these features in the next meetup as well. So all of these cool things are great, but if you can't discover the data, then itself that's a foundational use case for any metadata platform, right? So if you go to our current release, we actually do a lot of relevancy work in terms of search. We provide importance to the tier tags and usage tags. For example, I'm a user or a data engineer somewhere. I'm typing for customers table. And as a data infrastructure, it's always been the case that there is many duplicated content, many of these tables kind of reused or whatnot. So what is the right table? How do we actually make sure the right tables pop up in the search results? So by default, in current OpenMetadata, we support by ranking, by boosting the tier tags, and also taking into account of usage. So if you can look at right now, why staging customers at the top, because it's a tier 1 table that is user marketed, and there is a highest usage percentile here compared to a customers table, which is also tier 1, but it is at 50th percentile. And all of this ranking is great, but it may change from organization to organization. Some may use tiering, some may use certification tags, some may use some different tags, or they don't want the usage, they don't want the popularity coming into search relevancy, right? So to improve that, all of this relevancy now packed into the code in the current releases. In 1.7, in OpenMetadata, what we are trying to do is to give control to the admin users of this platform. So if I come here and go to the search settings and preferences and search, I get my full control of search control panel, search relevancy, and everything else. So if I look at what are my global settings, can I enable roles and policies so that you can actually enable access control right within the search, and some other like Elastic or OpenSearch settings here. But more importantly, what is the default ranking? What are the things that I want to boost in my organization? So these are the default ranking that we provide. But you may have different ideas how, hey, I don't want the tiers. I want maybe, my glossary terms to be appearing first. Anything that is tagged with, I don't know, business should be appearing first rather than tier. This is the global level, and at each entity level, you can also customize your search ranking. Let me jump into my local host. For example, let's say, if I type sales right now, so I get sales, and this is marked by tier 1, and obviously if I access tier 2, and this sales doesn't have any tiering, and obviously appears as a top results. I want to change this behavior. Now I can go back to my settings, preferences, search. I'll go to my tables. I want to add my term boost. Let's see. I want to see if there is any location I want to actually boost rather than 100. I want to go really higher, right? So let's see. It's a number of 70. Now let's search for sales. Now I'm going to go tag this as maybe location. Yeah. Now if we go and search for sales, now you can see the sales data that's previously at the top results shown up at the beginning, because we said location tag should get more boost compared to tier 1, tier 2. So this gives you full control of how do you want to kind of rank, how do you want to match different fields, and so on. And the other thing I want to showcase quickly here is in search, if I go back to my tables, you can see all the matching fields that you have here, right? And if you go down, I also have tags matching that I added for this demo. Specifically, if you go back, let's say in my searching for sensitive tag here, I get most of the time the tags and other things that are kind of matches in the name, but I don't get tables or assets that matches this tag itself. So if I go back to my local here, I want to say sensitive. So it also gives me tags also along with my data assets, in this case tables, because we are matching here the tag FQN with the tables that has sensitive tag. So it's again another easy way of, hey, I may not need description matching in my organization. I want to kind of provide glossary terms, tags, more seamless experience. Maybe you can also add owner as your tagging, as your matching field as well. So again, gives you a complete control of how do you want to organize your boosting, how do you want to organize your matching things. For example, display name, the keyword, I have it 20 as my boost. Maybe I want to increase really high so that exact matches comes higher than maybe a partial matches, right? So these are all the things that are coming into 1.7 in OpenMetadata. What I want to showcase while we are at it here is also what we are integrating to collate is the LLM search, natural language search. So if I enable my natural language search and I'll go say tables with tier 1. So what it's doing is it's understanding the intent of the user, saying that, hey, user is asking for any tables with here and only showing those tables that are tier 1 tag. So if I go back here and open this one, so it has a tier 1, right? So that's what we are doing. I want to do table with tier 1 owned by maybe accounting team. Okay, that's. So all of this, again, coming back as an accounting team owned assets and everything else. So not only have a flexible settings and ranking, now you can actually integrate with an LLM to translate the natural language into a query that can be understandable by open source and OpenSearch or Elasticsearch. And that's our search. I'm going to quickly jump into, I don't know if you have time. Okay, I'll jump into one more cool feature that is coming up. So if you are regular users of OpenMetadata, you already know that you can customize our landing page. With this release, we are actually opening up these customizations to pretty much across the platform. So you can go to settings and persona in the data stewards. You can have customized UI. Under the navigation, you can also remove all of these things and add any modules and anything else. For example, maybe for data stewards in my organization, I don't want to showcase my incident manager. I can just remove that from the navigation, save it, reload this page already as a data steward. So if I go here under the observability, there is no more incident manager. So you can simplify the navigation, the modules that you want to expose to to your users. Not just the navigation, but also I can go into my data assets, go to my table. This is the entire, the tabs and the entity page that you look at. You are allowed to kind of rename any of these tabs if you want to, and you can add a name. Maybe I want to add a tab called README. Maybe I have long documentation. Instead of you looking at the description in schema page, I want to add a large description page and kind of make it this as a big, and make this my first tab and save. So once I have done that, I can go back to any entity page, and the README appeared first. Let me not push this. README appeared first with the description only widget here. And I can still go back to my schema and look at all of these things. Similarly, I can go back to my data steward, customize UI. I can go to my schema and edit widgets. So maybe I don't want to quickly join tags at the tab, but I want my tags to appear first, my glossary terms to be next, and data products after. So you can customize the ordering of it, kind of move around and all of these things. The other important thing I want to point out here is you want to maybe, sample data is not important for a certain persona. You can remove that. Queries is not important for a certain persona, so you can remove that. So you get to customize this to the expert level, the need to know basis level of the persona, the full platform end to end. And at this stage, I'm going to stop with my features. You can cover the lineage and other things in the following.
Awesome. So super cool. I don't know you folks, but 900 commits put into well use with these changes into the personas, into the reverse metadata, day one, the changes in the UI and UX. So we are super excited into getting the release out. I'm sorry that we ran out a bit of time today, but as you can see, a lot of content that is coming in. So thank you everyone for joining. It was super great having the chance to show you all of these features again. We're going to be sharing this recording into YouTube, and we cannot wait to get the new release out. As always, any feedback also that you have with the new features, new UX, and whatnot, more than happy to listen to that, to act on that. And as you can see, a lot of people were actually asking, hey, how can we simplify this experience for certain users, customize that experience for other people and whatnot. And as you've seen, we are materializing all of these pieces. So thanks again. Have a good rest of your day, and looking forward to see you on the next one.
Thanks, everyone.